Welcome to Without a Doubt, the podcast, where we explore the transformative journey of breaking cycles and embracing your truest self. I'm Mad, a cycle breaker, entrepreneur, and sprinkle of reality. Each week, we dive into conversations that challenge conventional thinking and inspire personal growth. Here, you're going to find practical tips to help you navigate your own path forward towards authenticity. Whether you're looking to overcome limiting beliefs, create meaningful change in your own life, or simply live more authentically, you're in the right place. So get ready to break the cycles that are holding you back, and let's start living a life that truly reflects who you are meant to truly be. Did you notice the intro got a little facelift? I need to edit the music because I don't really love it, although Kendra tells me she does. I really had goals last year just to get an intro song on, so I did. But I don't really feel that it's here to stay. Actually, not that song. I don't know. I know for so long I was actually struggling to take the initial step to add in the music. Well, because new editing is something I had to learn, but I had to listen to hundreds of music clips, and sometimes I like how I do things and I don't want to change my methods. It's unlearning the old and relearning the new. If you hate change, if you struggle with change, or if you need to make a change, this episode is for you. I think most people hate change. I am also one of those people. I don't like things changing quickly, and I'm a believer that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, not all things exactly. The creative in me likes to change and alter things and upcycle, but I'm talking big change. For example, I'm more motivated to paint my little kitchen breakfast nook bench rather than actually sit down and take the time to look at my investment portfolios and start investing in my future a little more, like looking for some land to buy or actually finding some properties outside of my home state. Those are my long-term goals. Move out of Florida. These are scary changes. The short-term changes are obviously going to be easier to make. The quick little fixes, those quick little life changes are always going to feel easier to rally up versus changing the job you hate, finding a solution to the issue you're having, or better yet, just not breaking the cycle or pattern that are making you feel like shit because you don't want to change or alter the relationships. And by relationships, I'm talking about the relationships with ourselves as well. When I was younger, I worked as a server at a chicken wing place. After 6 years of working there, they got their liquor license. Well, as soon as they changed their hours, added the liquor, I was like, yeah, this really isn't for me anymore. At the time I was doing Orange Theory, I was actually doing sales for Orange Theory, and I was waking up at 3:45 in the morning to go work the desk and work at the studio. I did not want to work any later. I was already getting home at 12:30 or 1 o'clock on Monday nights. I did not want to learn new menu items, and I was not up for the change in the restaurant, so I made the change. I quit serving, I left, and I went full-time into Orange Theory. I solely relied on my sales job, and that was really scary for me. I also really just loved working at the restaurant. I was closing a door to my little family there, and change comes when you end up making a new job, or it comes when you're fed up, or it appears when you really need it most. Yet we're so resistant to changes and all that tags along with it. We make changes when incidents, life reminders, accidents, or revelations happen. We change or we want change when we disagree with something or we think we have a better solution. We all know how to make changes, but oftentimes we just don't do them out of fear, doubt, insecurity, or living with the unknown. Change can be really good for us in a few ways, so let's talk about these. First of all, learning new things. When we learn new things, we are going to get to try new activities, we're going to learn new skills, and this is how we keep growing our brain. We also can meet new people when we're doing these. Like, change means getting out and making new friends. It means learning about different cultures or ideas, and that can be fun and interesting. Change can also lead us to finding solutions to problems. For example, if something isn't really working out well, changing how we do it can lead to improvements, better mental well-being, period. Change can also help us to get more resilient, be more adaptable. We can learn to handle different situations and become more confident with these moves. Also, finding happiness. Sometimes change will bring new opportunities that can lead us to more happiness or fulfillment, like moving to a new place, a new job, starting a new hobby. Our end goal, right, is to be happy. That's what we all want. When I made the job change, it was for the better. It was challenging me because I was no longer coming home with money at the end of the night for my serving shift, but I then was only getting paid 2 times a month. I was uncertain if I was even going to make enough money. I was scared because I was closing a chapter that I lived in for 6 years, but I was starting a new chapter that I could rewrite and that I could write pages for. I was able to create change in things that I didn't like when I did make the job shift. This episode was actually inspired by my therapist. I was talking to her last week about how different I feel in just a matter of 3 months. I realized I was depressed maybe for 6 months plus. I don't really even know how long. I just know that I needed a change. And that's why I decided to start therapy. My little light was basically smoldering to the smallest flame, and I could feel that darkness taking over. Starting therapy helped me discover my light again. It was a change I needed for me. And let me tell you that I was hesitant to start. Side note, I do have a podcast about mental health and therapy, and it's probably one of my favorite episodes. So go listen to it if you haven't already. I don't believe that we are all self-aware. I know for a fact that most people are not. They're just walking zombies. We are not woke. Most people are actually craving change from their life, and they want something else. They want to find more of something. And these walking zombies on the planet are the people who really need the change the most, but they fail to see it. They fail to do it. Change is inevitable, though. You will change if you don't make the changes that you need. And I know in 3 months, I did change a lot. Therapy showed me how much I changed. And I even found my little light again. I say this as in, we need to do what is best for ourselves, or the universe will smack us the fuck up. The universe has this fucked up way of saying, well, if you can't do the change, I'm gonna do it for you. And in my life, honestly, and maybe for a lot of people in this same time, the 2020 really became a critical year for me. It was a year I stepped out of a 6-year coaching job that I was already 1 foot out the door. I also believe that what is meant for me won't miss me. I say this, it's like when the time is the time is the time. We all have expirations on jobs, friendships, our life. The expiration date on things sometimes comes without warning, making a seriously harsh change in our own world. For me, that was the 1 foot out of Orange theory and 1 foot into building my little brand as me, Madison. I was laid off in 2020 like a lot of other humans, and I was forced to make changes more or less that I had been really wanting to make. But I was comfortable at my job. And oftentimes we sit in comfort rather than attempting to cross the mud for more, for a greener grass. How much can you change in a few months? Well, a lot more than you think. I did tell you earlier that in 3 months, I feel like I found my little light. I don't know how long I was actually in that depression or funk, or even how long I was building into that, but it really felt like it happened fast for me. Another example in my life about change, I started hitting the gym again 5 times a week with a plan. And I was committed to it. I still have been pretty committed to this. And in 2 months, my before and after pictures were so different. My body looked leaner, but also felt leaner, felt stronger, and I also just felt better about myself. That was in a matter of 2 months and 60 days. That change came quick. It can happen fast. It can happen also unexpectedly, but it can also happen really slow. In nature, fast change happens. Thunderstorms can wash away things in a matter of hours. Flooding can happen in minutes. Lightning can cause a fire, creating an entire forest fire in a split second. Change can happen super fast. But then there's slow change, like the bleaching of our coral reefs, endangered species, deforestation. We all have these slow changes in the course of 30 years. Hotter oceans, less trees, and more people. These slow changes are causing the earth to change too, and it's happening faster than anyone anticipated. Change happens at all speeds. Let's talk about butterflies and how fast their life cycles evolve. Some animals go through these really big changes as they grow. These changes are called metamorphosis. The evolution of a butterfly is really fascinating, and it's a process that involves a few different stages. It starts off as an egg. The life of a butterfly becomes a little tiny egg laid on a little leaf of a plant, and the egg stage is very short, a few days to maybe a few weeks, depending on the actual type of butterfly. Then it becomes the caterpillar. After the egg hatches, the butterfly starts its little stage as a little creepy crawly thing known as the larva. Caterpillars are primarily focused on eating. If you've ever had milkweed, they will eat the entire plant. They have a different appearance from adult butterflies, and they look totally different. Like literally they're little worms versus something with big wings when we think of a butterfly. Caterpillars can also molt and shed their skin several times. Then there's the chrysalis. It's like once the caterpillar reaches its full size, it enters a little pupa stage and it forms a little casting around itself called the chrysalis or the cocoon. And that's where the caterpillar goes through its most dramatic transformation. The real metamorphosis happens here. The body literally changes from that little worm-looking caterpillar thing to a butterfly. And this stage can last from a matter of days to weeks to even months, depending on, once again, the butterfly. And finally, we move to the butterfly stage. The beautiful developed butterfly emerges from the chrysalis, and at first the wings are going to be soft and wet, and then they dry and they get hard. And the butterfly starts to seek out food. They find, obviously, nectar from flowers. It finds a mate, lays eggs, and it continues a cycle. Every single cycle eats something different, does something different, and looks totally different. Each stage is adapted to different functions and environments, and the entire process actually allows the butterflies to make the most of their different life stages for growth, survival, and reproduction. These stages are so dramatic, and it's just wild how every stage looks totally different. I mentioned earlier about going back to the gym 5 times a week and getting my workout grind on. This was not a hard turn to go to 5 times a week for me. I had already been going 2 to 3 times, so you can't just jump right into everything. Full force, jumping in doesn't work. Sometimes adding in the changes at a reasonable pace so these changes are sticking, especially if you want the change. Remember, this episode is all about change. You can quit cold turkey. Yes, you can change that. You could start something, jump head first, full force in. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying that there are different speeds at which these changes can get added in, turned up, or honestly, ultimately, how much these changes actually mean to us. I sometimes do prefer to jump in head first, but I've also learned that pace is how you win the race. Tortoise speed, not the hare. I was reading a Reddit thread recently about small rural towns, and something stuck with me, and it was along the lines of how small towns stay the same. You can come back and 10 years later, they're pretty much exactly how you left them, maybe one new business. But in the metropolis, buildings will be put up in a matter of 3 months. A whole city can be built in a year. Neighborhoods, communities, and developments literally come from nowhere. That is so true. It's like the city folk are so accustomed to change, but the country life that is slow, they're good with the lack of change. I am from South Florida. This is where I live, and this is constant evolution down here. They knock things down to rebuild. They are literally just always finding something new to build here. It's the metropolis. I see how fast things change. I watch businesses open and close in a matter of months. In big cities, that's how fast things change. We mentioned how fast kids grow and how much babies change. Well, they do. You know, in the first 5 years of our lives as humans, we change beyond measure, not just in our size, but developmentally. As we get older, the change of our appearance, like our height and our weight, it really doesn't fluctuate. Adults usually look the same for years unless you have some radical changes done or, you know, some off-kilter thing. But we make the changes as adults to look different versus as children, they're just constantly evolving and changing. Their faces are changing, their bones, their growth. We can change equally, though, as much as a child does. We have the ability to relearn, unwire, change our brains. We can mold them with neuroplasticity into the human that we want. We know that neuroplasticity with PTSD and all of these things can change and shape your brain, but we also know that we can create changes that help us develop into the people that we know. We can remold our brain with that change. It is possible. Unpopular opinion about people and change: when people say, people don't change. No, people don't want to change. People can if they wanted to. But when you don't want to do something, you just don't want to. My brother was in prison on and off for 6 years. And most of my family had this idea that he would probably be an angry human his entire life. And he's been, honestly, a real active person in society for the last 6 years. And he isn't actually angry. He makes better ethical decisions. And he is not the same kid he was at 19. He did the work to want to be a part of community, a family, and not be locked away again. He did change. So when people say, no, you can't change, the fuck you can. You just don't want to. Growth and change usually run hand in hand. And this comes into my point of making changes when things are going well. We usually won't make the change because, well, it ain't broken. Why fix it? But if you're content with who you are or where you're going, change will be slow or minimal for you. If you're seeking more, or if you're feeling starved of something, if you're dreaming bigger, changes and growth will come along for the ride. It's inevitable. Those changes will happen. We won't make these changes when life feels good because, well, life is good. But then what happens when life smacks the fuck out of you? When you don't think you need change, but then one little piece of news, one call, one moment changes your life forever. It alters it forever. Your life can change in a second. And it can happen when you least expect it. Sometimes change is something we have no control over. You can't control all change. My brain just went into the example of forest fires. There are such fires called controlled burns, where farmers, foresters light their forests or crops on fire to help the soil and the land. Sometimes we are those farmers in our own lives controlling the burn, the change, but sometimes there are these forest fires that are created in the split second of one strike. That's when it's out of our control. Change isn't bad, change isn't good. Change can create different results. It's ultimately how or what it means to you and how you move about it. And like I said earlier, change can be fast or slow. It's all different paces in life, but it can also be life-changing. Making changes can catapult us into new dimensions of ourselves. And I really want to put this episode out because I think we need the reminder that we can be that butterfly. We can be free. We can metamorphosize into the humans that we want. We can go through all these different stages and we can change who we are if that's what and who we want to be. This life is so short, and if you're actually subtracting our younger child life, we really only get to live as a free human for like 40 plus years, if we are lucky. We have to make the changes to find happiness if we're not there. We have to make the changes to live the authentic lives we want, and we have to make the changes to create the world we want to be a part of. I can't leave you without letting you know that you are without a doubt a badass. Go off and make the changes you need to be free. See you next week. XOXO, your girl, Matt.